I booked the mountain retreat because I needed to escape. That was the lie I told everyone. My friends thought I was taking a break after a stressful semester. My parents thought I needed fresh air before my final year of college. Even I kept repeating that excuse until it almost sounded true. The reality was much harder to explain. I wasn't running from classes. I wasn't running from deadlines. I wasn't even running from the future. I was running from a mistake I couldn't forget. 3 months earlier, I had fallen for someone I never should have fallen for. His name was Ryan. He wasn't my boyfriend. He wasn't even close to being my boyfriend. He was my best friend. For almost 2 years, Ryan and I had done everything together. Movie nights, coffee runs, late-night study sessions, weekend road trips. Everyone assumed we were dating. We always laughed it off. Then one night, after too much honesty and not enough sleep, I told him the truth. I told him I loved him. The silence that followed still haunted me. Ryan wasn't cruel. That somehow made it worse. He looked at me with pity. Pity. Not anger. Not disgust. Not confusion. Just pity. Then he quietly said he didn't feel the same way. A week later, he started dating someone else. After that, our friendship slowly collapsed. No dramatic fight. No screaming. Just distance. The kind that grows one unanswered text message at a time. The kind that makes someone who used to be part of your everyday life feel like a stranger. So when I found an advertisement for Silver Pine Retreat hidden between social media posts, I clicked it without thinking. The pictures showed mountain trails, wooden cabins, lakes surrounded by pine trees, and sunsets that looked almost fake. The slogan said, "Sometimes you need distance to find yourself again." Normally, I would have rolled my eyes. Instead, I booked the trip. Maybe because I was exhausted. Maybe because I was lonely. Maybe because I was hoping the mountains could fix something inside me. Deep down, I knew they couldn't. But hope makes people do strange things. 5 days later, I stood at a shuttle station outside Seattle with a backpack slung over one shoulder. The morning air was cool. The sky was gray. Rain threatened in the distance. Perfect weather for a fresh start. At least that was what I told myself. The shuttle arrived 10 minutes later. People climbed aboard carrying hiking gear, coffee cups, and oversized backpacks. Everyone looked excited. Everyone looked relaxed. I envied them. I found an empty seat near the back and put on my headphones. The plan was simple. Ignore everyone. Enjoy the scenery. Spend 4 days healing. Then return home. Easy. At least it should have been. The shuttle pulled onto the highway. The city slowly disappeared behind us. Buildings became trees. Traffic became silence. For the first time in weeks, my chest felt lighter. Then someone laughed. My entire body froze. It wasn't just any laugh. It was familiar.
Dangerously familiar.
A sound I hadn't heard in years. I slowly lowered my headphones. No, couldn't be. My eyes moved toward the front of the shuttle. 3 rows ahead sat a tall guy wearing a dark jacket. Dark brown hair. Broad shoulders. Confident posture. Even from behind, I knew exactly who he was. My stomach dropped. Logan. The name echoed inside my head. Logan Brooks. The one person I never wanted to see again. Especially not here. Especially not now. High school suddenly came rushing back. Crowded hallways. Basketball games. Locker rooms. Whispers. Laughter. And Logan standing in the center of it all. Back then, he had been everything I wasn't. Popular. Athletic. Fearless. The kind of guy everyone noticed the second he entered a room, the kind of guy I secretly admired. Which had been a terrible mistake. Because Logan hadn't just broken my heart. He had helped destroy my confidence. Sophomore year started normally. By junior year, rumors were everywhere. People thought I liked boys. Some guessed correctly. Others just enjoyed making assumptions. Most students ignored it. A few made jokes. Logan made it worse. Not because he physically bullied me. That would have been easier. Instead, he laughed. Every time someone made a joke. Every time someone mocked me. Every time someone whispered something cruel. He laughed. And somehow that hurt more. Because I had liked him. because part of me kept hoping he would be different, because every laugh felt like a reminder that I was stupid for believing otherwise. Years had passed since then. I had graduated, moved away, started college, built a new life. Yet one glimpse of Logan Brooks was enough to drag me backward. I turned toward the window immediately. Maybe he hadn't seen me. Maybe I could survive this trip without speaking to him. Maybe the universe wasn't completely evil. Then I saw his reflection. In the glass, looking directly at me. My heartbeat stumbled. He recognized me. There was no doubt about it. For 1 second, our eyes met through the reflection. Then he looked away. I did the same. The rest of the drive felt endless. I kept staring out the window. Forests rolled past. Mountains appeared in the distance. Rain tapped softly against the glass. Normally, I would have enjoyed the view. Instead, my mind stayed trapped in old memories. Every laugh, every rumor, every moment I wished I could disappear. When the shuttle finally reached Silver Pine Retreat, relief flooded through me. I grabbed my backpack and stepped outside. The mountain air was cold and fresh. Tall pine trees surrounded the resort. Several wooden cabins stood scattered around a lake. The place looked beautiful. Exactly what I needed. Exactly what I had imagined. Then Logan stepped off the shuttle behind me. The relief vanished. Inside the main lodge, guests lined up to receive room keys. I stayed near the back. The less interaction, the better. A woman behind the front desk welcomed everyone with a cheerful smile. For a while, everything seemed normal. Then her radio crackled. Her expression changed. A maintenance worker hurried over. They exchanged worried looks. Immediately, I knew something bad was coming. The manager cleared her throat. "I'm very sorry, everyone." Nobody likes hearing those words at check-in. A few guests exchanged nervous glances. The storm last night caused damage to several lakeside cabins. Most rooms are unaffected, but a few reservations may need temporary adjustments. I felt my stomach sink. Because bad luck loved me. The manager looked at her tablet. Then she called my name. "Ethan Carter?" I stepped forward. "That's me." Her smile became apologetic. "Your cabin was one of the affected units." Of course it was. Naturally. Why wouldn't it be? Before I could respond, another voice spoke from behind me. "Mine too." I didn't need to turn around. I already knew. "Logan." The manager checked her screen again. Her face somehow became even more uncomfortable. And that was when I knew things were about to get much worse. Much, much worse. Because the universe clearly wasn't finished with me, yet the manager stared at her tablet for several seconds. Then she looked up. Then back down. Then up again. That was never a good sign. "I'm very sorry," she said carefully. "Normally we would move one of you to another cabin, but we're completely booked this weekend." I didn't like where this was going. Not one bit. The manager continued. "There is one cabin available. Just one." My stomach tightened. "The emergency guest cabin near the lake." I already knew the next sentence before she said it. It would need to be shared. Silence filled the lobby. A couple standing nearby stopped talking. Even the maintenance worker looked uncomfortable. I slowly turned around. Logan was standing behind me. His expression wasn't any happier than mine. The manager forced a professional smile. "It would only be temporary. One night, maybe two. As compensation, we'll refund both nights, provide complimentary meals, and offer private guided tours." I didn't care about free meals. I didn't care about guided tours. I cared about not sharing a cabin with Logan Brooks. "I booked a private room," I said. "I understand." "No, I don't think you do." The manager looked genuinely apologetic. Behind me, Logan finally spoke. "I can sleep on the couch." I looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time since high school. He looked older. More mature. Less arrogant. That annoyed me. Because villains were supposed to stay villains. Life would have been easier that way. "I don't remember asking for your solution," I replied. The words came out sharper than intended. Logan accepted the hit without reacting. That surprised me. Back in high school, he would have fired back immediately. The old Logan loved winning arguments. This Logan simply nodded. The manager looked between us nervously. So, should I prepare the cabin? I glanced toward the lodge entrance. Outside, rain had started falling harder. The nearest town was over an hour away.
No taxis. No buses.
No easy escape. I hated every possible option. Finally I sighed. One night. The manager's relief was immediate. Wonderful. It wasn't wonderful. Not even close. A few minutes later, a staff member named Hannah escorted us toward the lakeside cabin. The path wound between tall pine trees. Rain drummed softly against leaves. The lake reflected the gray sky like a giant mirror. It should have been peaceful. Instead, every step felt heavier. Logan walked several feet behind me. Neither of us spoke. Finally, Hannah stopped outside a small wooden cabin. A lantern glowed beside the front door. The building looked cozy, warm, almost romantic. I immediately hated it. Hannah unlocked the door and stepped aside. Here we are. I entered first, then froze. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The cabin wasn't large. There was a fireplace, a small kitchen, a couch, a bathroom, and one bedroom. One single bedroom. Hannah looked horrified. Oh no. Apparently she hadn't known either. The reservation system listed this as a double occupancy cabin. It lied, I said. It definitely lied. The bedroom door stood partially open. Inside sat one queen-sized bed. One. Not two. One. Logan slowly stepped into the room. His reaction mirrored mine. For a second, he looked like he wanted to turn around and walk directly into the lake. Honestly, I considered doing the same. Hannah apologized at least 6 times before leaving. The second the door closed, silence returned. The awkward kind. The dangerous kind. I dropped my backpack near the couch. Logan placed his duffel bag near the fireplace. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. The rain outside grew louder. Finally, Logan cleared his throat. You can take the bedroom. I crossed my arms. And where exactly will you sleep? The couch. The couch was tiny, at least 6 inches too short for him. I noticed. Unfortunately, I don't care where you sleep. A lie, a childish lie, but still a lie I wanted to tell. Logan nodded once. Okay.
No argument. No sarcasm. No attitude.
Just okay. That was somehow more frustrating. I grabbed my backpack and headed toward the bedroom. The room smelled like pine wood and fresh laundry. A large window overlooked the lake. The bed looked ridiculously comfortable. I threw my bag onto a chair, then sat on the edge of the mattress. Everything felt wrong. This trip was supposed to help me forget painful memories. Instead, those memories were sleeping 10 feet away in the living room. A few minutes later, I heard cabinet doors opening. Then dishes. Then water running. Curiosity got the better of me. I stepped out of the bedroom. Logan stood in the kitchen area making coffee. For a second my brain struggled to process the image. Because the Logan I remembered never made coffee. The Logan I remembered made other people do things for him. This version looked different. More independent. More human. He noticed me watching. Want some?
No.
I absolutely wanted some. The smell was incredible. But principle mattered. At least a little. He poured himself a cup, then sat near the fireplace, still leaving plenty of distance between us. The rain continued outside. Thunder rolled faintly in the distance. I returned to the bedroom. Several hours passed. The weather grew worse. Wind shook the trees. Rain hammered against the windows. At dinner, guests gathered inside the main lodge. I arrived alone. Unfortunately, Logan was already there. And unfortunately, every table was full, except one, the table where he sat. Of course, because apparently the universe enjoyed comedy, I considered eating standing up. A resort employee noticed. There's an open seat right there. She pointed directly at Logan. Wonderful. Just wonderful. Reluctantly, I sat down. Neither of us spoke. For several minutes, only the sounds of silverware and conversations filled the room. Then a woman across from us smiled. Are you two friends? I nearly choked on my drink. Logan looked equally alarmed.
No.
We answered simultaneously. The woman laughed. Wow, that sounded personal. If only she knew. She introduced herself as Emily, a cheerful graduate student from Portland. Unlike us, Emily apparently enjoyed talking. Within minutes, she was asking questions. Where we went to college, what we studied, how long we'd known each other. Every answer felt like walking through a minefield. Then she smiled at Logan. Your girlfriend couldn't make the trip? For some reason, my attention immediately shifted toward him. I hated that. Absolutely hated it. Logan shook his head. I don't have a girlfriend. Emily raised an eyebrow. Boyfriend? Something flickered across Logan's face. So quickly I almost missed it.
No.
Just one word. Simple. Quiet. But something about it felt unfinished. The conversation moved on. Yet my brain stayed stuck there. I didn't know why, and I definitely didn't want to examine it too closely. After dinner, everyone returned to their cabins. The storm had become much worse. Thunder echoed across the mountains. Lightning flashed over the lake. By the time Logan and I reached the cabin, rain was falling sideways. The door slammed shut behind us. Finally, we were alone again. The fire crackled softly. The cabin felt smaller somehow. More intimate. More dangerous. I hated that feeling. Logan sat on the couch. I stood near the bedroom doorway. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he surprised me. Ethan. Hearing my name from him felt strange. Different. I looked up. What? He hesitated, as if carefully choosing his words. Then he said something I never expected to hear. I know you hate me. My chest tightened. The room suddenly felt very quiet. Logan looked toward the fire. Not at me. I probably deserve it. For the first time all day, I didn't know what to say because bullies weren't supposed to sound sorry. And deep down, that scared me more than if he had acted exactly the way I remembered. Outside, thunder exploded above the lake. Inside the cabin, neither of us moved. But something had changed. And for the first time since arriving, I realized this trip might become far more complicated than either of us expected. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I saw the wooden ceiling, the fireplace, the lake outside the window, and Logan sleeping on the couch. His arm hung off the edge. His neck was bent at an uncomfortable angle. The couch was clearly too small for him. A strange feeling tugged at my chest. Not sympathy. Definitely not sympathy. At least that was what I told myself. I quietly got out of bed and headed toward the kitchen. The cabin was silent except for the soft sound of rain outside. While making coffee, I glanced toward the couch. Logan hadn't moved. He looked exhausted. There were faint shadows beneath his eyes. For some reason, that surprised me. The Logan I remembered always looked confident, untouchable, like life couldn't hurt him. This Logan looked tired, human. The thought bothered me. I was pouring coffee when his voice suddenly broke the silence. You make terrible coffee. I nearly dropped the mug. Logan was awake and smiling. Not a smug smile, not a mocking smile, just a normal smile, the kind friends shared. My stomach immediately felt weird. Good morning to you too. He sat up slowly and stretched. His shirt lifted slightly, revealing part of his stomach. I immediately looked away. The fact that I noticed annoyed me. A lot. Still grumpy? He asked. I'm trapped in a cabin with my least favorite person. His smile faded slightly. Fair. At least he didn't argue. That should have made me feel satisfied. Instead, I felt strangely guilty. Which was ridiculous because Logan was the one who should feel guilty, not me. After breakfast, guests gathered near the lodge for a guided hike. The storm had finally passed. The mountains looked beautiful. Fresh rain covered everything. Sunlight filtered through the trees. The air smelled clean. For the first hour, I managed to avoid Logan. Then the trail narrowed, and somehow he ended up walking beside me. Perfect. Just perfect. A guide named Rachel led the group deeper into the forest. People chatted casually around us. I focused on the scenery. Anything to avoid conversation. Then Logan surprised me again. You still draw? I nearly stumbled. The question hit me out of nowhere. Years ago, drawing had been my favorite hobby. Back when I filled sketchbooks with landscapes, characters, and designs. Back before high school made me hide parts of myself. I looked at him. Why would you remember that? Logan seemed surprised by the question. Because you were really good. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Because I didn't remember Logan ever saying anything nice to me. Not once. I don't draw much anymore. Oh, the disappointment in his voice sounded genuine. That made things worse. Much worse. The hike continued. Yet his question stayed stuck inside my head. Why would he remember something like that? Why would he care? Several hours later, the group stopped beside a waterfall. People pulled out phones to take pictures. Rachel announced a short break. Everyone scattered. Everyone except Logan and me. Unfortunately, I sat on a large rock overlooking the water. A few minutes later, Logan sat nearby. Not too close. Not too far. Like he was trying to respect invisible boundaries the silence stretched between us. Finally, he spoke. Ethan. Something in his voice felt different. Serious. Careful. I already knew I wasn't going to like whatever came next. What? Logan stared at the waterfall for several seconds. Then he sighed. I've wanted to apologize for years. The words hit harder than expected. I laughed. A short, bitter laugh. Really? He nodded. Really? I crossed my arms. Then why didn't you? Logan's jaw tightened. Because I was a coward. The honesty caught me off guard. His voice cracked slightly. And because I hated myself for caring about what happened to you. My heart skipped. What? Logan swallowed hard. For the first time since high school, he looked directly into my eyes. I noticed you. The world seemed to stop. The waterfall. The forest. Everything. Gone. Only those 3 words remained. I noticed you. My pulse hammered inside my chest. Because that was exactly what I never wanted to hear. And exactly what I'd secretly wanted for years. Logan looked away first. Maybe because he saw the shock on my face. Maybe because he regretted saying it. I didn't know. I always noticed you. His voice was barely above a whisper. The drawings. The way you read during lunch. The way you helped people even when nobody thanked you. Every word chipped away at the image I'd built of him. The image of a heartless bully. The image that had protected me. Because if Logan had never cared, hating him was easy. If he had noticed me, if he had admired parts of me, then everything became complicated. Dangerously complicated. Before I could respond, Rachel called everyone back together. The moment shattered. People gathered around us. Conversations resumed. The hike continued. But my thoughts remained trapped beside that waterfall. I noticed you. The words followed me all afternoon. Back at the resort, guests spent time around the lake. Some rented kayaks. Others relaxed near the lodge. I chose a bench overlooking the water. Mostly because it was empty. A few minutes later, someone sat beside me. Emily, the cheerful graduate student from dinner. Mind if I join you? Go ahead. She smiled, then glanced toward the dock, specifically toward Logan, who was helping a family carry life jackets. Interesting. Very interesting. Emily noticed me looking. Then she smirked. Oh no, that smirk meant trouble. You know, she said casually. I think he likes you. I nearly choked. What? Emily laughed. It's obvious. No, it isn't. It really is. I shook my head immediately. Absolutely not. Emily looked unconvinced. Okay. The way she said okay made it clear she didn't believe me. At all. Then she stood. See you at dinner. And walked away, leaving me alone with thoughts I didn't want. Across the lake, Logan laughed at something a little girl said. The sound drifted through the air. For a moment he looked genuinely happy. Not like the boy from high school. Not like the villain from my memories. Just Logan. And somehow that scared me more than anything. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't sure who he really was anymore. And that uncertainty followed me all the way back to the cabin. where something even more unexpected was waiting for both of us when Logan and I returned to the cabin that evening. The sky looked wrong. The clouds were darker than before, heavier, the kind of clouds that made the mountains look smaller. A storm warning had already been posted inside the lodge. Most guests treated it like an inconvenience. I didn't. Maybe because my luck had been terrible ever since arriving. Maybe because something inside me knew the trip wasn't finished testing me. The wind picked up after sunset. Rain began an hour later. By dinner, the storm was shaking the windows. By 9 o'clock, it felt like the entire mountain was holding its breath. The cabin lights flickered once. Then again. Logan looked up from the couch. I looked away immediately. The last thing I wanted was another awkward conversation. Unfortunately, life had other plans. A loud crack of thunder exploded outside. The lights went out. Instantly, the cabin disappeared into darkness. For a second, everything was silent. Then the rain slammed against the roof harder than before. The wind howled outside. Too real. Another crack of thunder split the sky. I squeezed my eyes shut. Then I heard Logan moving. Not toward me, just closer, careful, slow, like he didn't want to startle me. Ethan. His voice sounded different now. Gentler. I'm not going to touch you. Something about that sentence calmed me. Just a little. You don't have to prove anything. The storm continued raging outside. Rain hammered the roof. Lightning flashed through the windows. For several moments I said nothing. Then the words slipped out before I could stop them. I got locked inside a storage room. The silence that followed felt enormous. I stared into the darkness, unable to believe I'd said it. Logan remained quiet, waiting, giving me space. So I continued. Behind the gym, my voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. A group of guys thought it would be funny. Lightning flashed again. For half a second I saw Logan's face. Still, focused, listening. They held the door shut. I swallowed. Hard. I couldn't get out. The memory hurt more than I expected. Years later it still hurt. The fear. The humiliation. The helplessness. Everything. My chest tightened. I could hear them laughing. The words barely came out. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. Inside, Logan didn't interrupt. Didn't excuse anything. Didn't make it about himself. He just listened. Finally, I laughed once. A bitter sound. The stupid part is it only lasted a few minutes.
No.
Logan's voice cut through the darkness. It wasn't stupid. I looked toward him, unable to see much. Only his outline. Only the shape of him. It felt real to you. Something inside my chest cracked slightly. Because that was exactly what nobody had understood back then, not teachers. Not classmates. Not even my parents. Everyone had said the same thing, it was only a prank. Only a prank. Only a few minutes. Only a joke. Logan was the first person who didn't say that. The first person who understood. And that made everything more complicated. A few seconds later, Logan spoke again. His voice sounded rough. Ethan. What? The silence stretched. Then he said something that stole the air from my lungs. I was there. I froze. The storm disappeared. The room disappeared. Everything disappeared. What? His voice barely rose above a whisper. I was there that day. The memory hit me instantly. The storage room. The laughter. The door. Then, a voice. A familiar voice. One I'd forgotten until now. A voice saying, enough. Open the door. My heart started pounding. No, no way. Logan continued. I wasn't one of the guys who locked you in. His voice cracked slightly. But I saw it happen. The confession landed like a punch. Couldn't breathe. I should have stopped it immediately. His words sounded heavy, filled with years of regret. Instead, I stood there. Another flash of lightning lit the room. This time I saw shame written across his face. I froze. The honesty hurt, because I believed him. I hated myself for that. He looked away, even though the room was almost completely dark. I opened the door. The memory returned clearly now, the door opening. Light pouring in. Someone standing there. I had never seen the face. I had never known who it was. Until now. For years I had wondered. For years I had imagined. And somehow the answer was Logan. The same person who had hurt me. The same person who had laughed with everyone else. The same person who had also saved me. Nothing made sense anymore. My emotions collided inside my chest. Anger, relief, confusion, sadness, hope, everything at once. Why didn't you ever tell me? The question escaped before I could stop it. Logan laughed quietly, without humor, because I didn't think I deserved credit. His voice sounded broken, but now it felt distant, like background noise. I wasn't a good person back then. The confession hurt because it felt true. I cared too much about what people thought. His voice dropped lower. And I cared too much about you. The words hit harder than anything else. My heartbeat stumbled. Silence filled the cabin. Logan didn't take them back. Didn't pretend he hadn't said them. He just sat there, letting the truth exist between us. For years I had imagined hearing those words. Back when I was 16. Back when I had a stupid crush on him. Back when I would have given anything to matter. Now they felt different. Heavier. Real. I liked you. His voice shook. That's the worst part. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Couldn't think. I noticed you. The same words from the waterfall. Only this time there was no escape.
No interruption. No distraction.
Just truth. I liked you. Lightning flashed again. I hated that I liked you. Thunder followed. I hated that I was scared. Another flash. And I hated myself every time I laughed along with everyone else. The confession shattered something inside me. Not because it erased the past. Didn't. Nothing could, but for the first time I finally understood. Logan hadn't been a villain. He'd been a coward. And somehow that hurt even more. Because villains are easy to hate. Cowards are complicated. The room fell silent again. Only rain remained. Only breathing. Only years of unfinished feelings hanging between us. Then Logan said the one thing I never expected. I'm not asking for forgiveness. His voice was steady now. I'm not asking for a second chance. I listened, unable to look away. I'm just tired of lying. The honesty hit harder than any apology. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then another thunderclap shook the cabin. Instinctively, my hand found his. Neither of us seemed to realize it at first. Our fingers touched, then stayed. The contact was simple, small, yet somehow it felt enormous. Logan didn't squeeze my hand, didn't pull me closer, didn't take advantage of the moment. He simply stayed there, giving me the choice. And for the first time since arriving at Silver Pine Retreat, I didn't pull away. Outside, the storm continued. Inside, something much bigger had already changed. And neither of us could go back to pretending it hadn't. Neither of us slept much that night. Not after everything Logan had told me. Not after years of unanswered questions suddenly had answers. And definitely not after I'd held his hand. The memory stayed with me long after we finally let go. It wasn't dramatic. There wasn't some movie-style confession followed by an instant happy ending. Real life didn't work that way. Feelings were messy, complicated, especially when they came wrapped in years of hurt. The next morning, sunlight poured through the cabin windows. The storm had finally passed. The lake outside looked calm again, peaceful, like nothing had happened. I wished emotions worked that way. Logan was already awake when I stepped into the living room. He stood near the kitchen holding a mug of coffee. For a second, neither of us spoke. The silence felt different now. Not awkward, just uncertain. Like two people standing on a bridge they hadn't decided whether to cross. Morning, he said. Morning. A small smile appeared on his face. Not a confident smile, a hopeful one. And somehow that felt far more dangerous. I accepted a cup of coffee. We sat by the window, watching sunlight dance across the water. For several minutes, neither of us mentioned the previous night. Eventually Logan broke the silence. You don't owe me anything. I looked at him. His gaze remained fixed on the lake. You don't have to forgive me. The words sounded sincere, not rehearsed. Not manipulative. Just honest. I took a slow breath. I know. Logan nodded, then returned his attention to the view. No pressure.
No expectations.
For the first time, I realized something important. He wasn't trying to earn forgiveness. He was simply telling the truth. The difference mattered. More than I could explain. Later that morning, guests gathered near the lodge for checkout information. The damaged cabins had finally been repaired. Most people planned to leave by afternoon, including me. Part of me felt relieved. Another part wasn't ready, and that realization terrified me. While everyone waited, Emily found me near the coffee station. The moment she saw my face, she smiled. Oh, that smile meant trouble. Something happened. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? She laughed. Please. I rolled my eyes. Emily pointed toward Logan, who was helping an elderly couple load luggage into their vehicle. That man looks at you like you're the only person on the mountain. My heartbeat immediately betrayed me. Emily noticed. Of course she noticed. Then her grin widened. Oh wow. I groaned. Stop. You like him. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I hated how observant she was. A few minutes later she walked away laughing, leaving me alone with thoughts I wasn't ready to face. Unfortunately, she wasn't entirely wrong, because something had changed. The anger I'd carried for years wasn't gone. But it wasn't the only thing left anymore. There was understanding, now compassion, curiosity, and maybe something else. Something I'd buried a long time ago. Around noon, the resort shuttle arrived. Guests began loading their bags. Goodbyes echoed across the parking area. The trip was ending. Reality was returning. I placed my backpack inside the luggage compartment, then stepped away. My chest felt unexpectedly heavy. A few feet away, Logan stood beside the lake, looking out at the water, alone. For several moments, I simply watched him, thinking, remembering, the boy who laughed, the young man who regretted it, the person who opened that storage room door, the person who stayed beside me during the storm, the person brave enough to finally tell the truth. Before I could stop myself, I walked toward him. Logan heard my footsteps and turned around. His expression immediately softened. There was something vulnerable in his eyes, something hopeful, something afraid, the same fear I felt. I guess this is goodbye. The words sounded strange, wrong somehow. Logan forced a small smile. Maybe, not yes, not no, just maybe. The answer lingered between us. Then I remembered something. The first day, the shuttle ride. The way he'd looked at me through the reflection in the window. Like he'd recognized me immediately. Like he'd been carrying his own memories, his own regrets, his own unfinished story. I took a deep breath, then made the most terrifying decision of the entire trip. Not because it was dramatic, because it was honest. I don't forgive everything. Logan nodded immediately. I know. I might not for a while. I know. His voice remained steady, patient, understanding. I appreciated that more than he probably realized. Then I smiled slightly. For someone who was supposed to be my worst memory, Logan raised an eyebrow. I continued, "You've become pretty difficult to ignore." For 1 second he simply stared at me. Then he laughed. A real laugh. Warm. Unfiltered. The kind I'd never heard in high school. The sound made my chest feel lighter. Then Logan reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to me. I looked down. His phone number. Simple. Nothing else. No pressure.
No expectation.
Just a choice. If you ever want coffee. His voice sounded calm. If you ever want to yell at me. A smile tugged at my lips. If you ever want to talk. The smile grew. Or if you never want any of those things. He shrugged. I'll understand. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I folded the paper carefully and slipped it into my pocket. Not thrown away. Not ignored. Kept. The tiny action seemed to mean everything. Hope flickered inside Logan's eyes. Neither of us mentioned it. We didn't need to. A loud horn echoed through the parking area. The shuttle driver. Final boarding call. Reality had arrived. I looked toward the bus, then back at Logan. Years ago, my feelings for him had been built on imagination, on fantasies, on a version of him that never truly existed. This felt different, because now I knew his flaws, his mistakes, his regrets, and somehow that made him more real. Not perfect, just human, which mattered more. I stepped closer, close enough to see surprise flicker across his face. Then I wrapped my arms around him. The hug lasted only a few seconds. Simple, warm, real. When I stepped back, neither of us spoke immediately. The emotion in Logan's eyes said enough. For years, I thought closure meant ending a story. Standing there beside the lake, I finally understood something. Sometimes closure isn't an ending. Sometimes it's permission to begin something new. I climbed aboard the shuttle, found a seat near the window. As the vehicle pulled away, I glanced outside. Logan remained near the lake, watching, not chasing, not demanding, just waiting. A few minutes later, my phone vibrated. One new text message. Unknown number. I already knew who it was. The message contained only 6 words. Safe travels, Ethan. Talk soon. I stared at the screen, then smiled. A real smile. The first one in months. Outside, the mountains slowly disappeared behind us. Ahead lay Seattle College. Classes, real life, and maybe something else. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. For several seconds, I considered the possibilities. Then I typed a reply. Just 4 simple words. Coffee sounds nice, Logan. I hit send. And for the first time in a very long time, the future felt like something worth looking forward to. The end. Or perhaps, just the beginning.